All right, hello everybody, and welcome to our WAN Thursday presentation and live demo. My name is Jeff Aaron. I'm head of marketing here at MIST Juniper, and I'm thrilled to be here with Sunalini, who's head of product management on the AI-driven enterprise, or actually head of product management for location and WAN assurance. And so, Sunalini, welcome. I'm excited to be here with you. What we're going to do here is spend about 20, 30 minutes talking about our WAN solution. And actually, today is a great time right now because we literally had a big announcement yesterday. We talked about how we are transitioning the industry away from more of the reactive static policy-driven model to a more proactive, real-time AI-driven model. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. What that means, how you benefit from that, and then we're going to show a live demo and how that works with our existing SD-WAN solutions. So without further ado, as I said, what we're talking about today is the evolution of IT overall. There's a larger vision here around what Juniper MIST calls the AI-driven enterprise. And this is really being driven by customers, customers like you that have strong demand towards a new model, a new IT model, right? As there's an increase in the number of devices out there, the number of applications, the number of operating systems, it just becomes harder and harder to keep up. You have companies like the top online retail in the world that needs assurance that all their wireless devices and all their warehouses and all their distribution centers don't go down, right? If a robot, for example, breaks in a factory or warehouse, it can't call for help. And these types of companies lose billions of dollars every hour that those robots are down. So the IT industry needs to move towards something that has more guaranteed assurance from end to end. Similarly, it's not just about the network anymore. It's about the actual user experience, right? We have one customer, ServiceNow, that came to us and said, we want to be able to monitor our actual user experiences and get it to the point where we're literally getting 0 inbound trouble tickets from our users on a monthly basis. And with a new solution, they wanted to get from 100 a month to 0. And we'll talk about how we're able to achieve that in a new model. Thirdly, it's about automation, right? Some of the biggest challenges when it comes to deployment has to do with the fact that, humans fat finger, and cause manual errors. And so we have one customer, a large search company that basically said machines should configure machines. They can do a better job. They can eliminate errors and lower costs. So you should automate that process. And lastly, another trend that we're seeing is all about security, right? If you're not using things like AI to prevent hackers who are using the AI themselves to break in, you're behind the game. So again, the whole trend here is if you look at things like assurance, user level insight, automation, and then just security, it all comes down to the fact that the new old IT service model is dead. And you need to move towards one that's more AI driven and hosted in the cloud. So when Juniper and MIST talk about the AI driven enterprise, this is what we're talking about. And there are 4 key requirements that are associated with building this environment, right? The first has to do with the fact that, as we said, it is optimized for user experiences. User experience is the new uptime. It's not enough to say the network is up, the WAN link is up. You have to say, are users having the best possible experience over that WAN link? Secondly, it has to be managed by the cloud. And not just managed, it has to be operated by the cloud. And we're not talking about just day 0 setup. What you're going to see from this presentation is also about day 0 to 365. Once the network is up and running, once the WAN is up and running, how do you continue to see those operations running smoothly so you get lower costs? And obviously that end, it has to be AI driven. AI driven in terms of automation, AI driven in terms of insight, and AI driven in terms of self-driving actions, and also AI driven support, right? You want to be able to be notified that a CPU device went down before your users even realize it. You want to be able to notify that there's a new one coming in the mail before you even know that there's a problem. This is AI-driven support, and this is what we provide. And lastly, the thread that brings that all together is security. For example, the Juniper Connected Security, where every avenue along the way, every touch point, you have the ability to actually detect problems and enforce them. And that's what the secure SD-WAN and the secure AI-driven WAN is all about. The Juniper AI-driven enterprise, to be clear, is a complete vision, right? We started with wireless back in 2016. We added wired last year. And again, what we just announced this week is now WAN is part of that portfolio. So the ultimate goal here is to leverage our leadership when it comes to data collection, when it comes to domain expertise, when it comes to our virtual network assistant and AI-driven support to really bring you that end-to-end, client-to-cloud, full-stack insight, automation, and actions. So when it comes to the actual WAN, there's a major revolution that's happening right now. There's a major transformation. What started with WAN routing, obviously, over a decade ago, where Juniper was a leader there and still is, transitioned to SD-WAN really almost about 10 years ago, and now it's transitioning to AI-driven WAN. So while Juniper is a leader in SD-WAN, we're going to show you our solution where that's ideal for things like policy setup, link monitoring, analytics, and security setup. You really need to have a layer on top of that, what we're calling the AI-driven WAN, which also brings AI-driven automation, user-level experiences, and day 2 to day 365 automation. And that's what we're excited to show you today. Again, this is all about the full life cycle of your wireless network, from ease of setup to day 365 automation with visibility to the user experience using AI ops. So without further ado, why don't we hand it off and why don't we do the demo? So again, what we're going to show you today is a mix of platforms. So we're going to start with CSO and show you our SD-WAN, which is again our link setup, our link monitoring, and some of the situations that you can do around that. And then what we're going to do on that is Sunalini is going to come on board and layer on top of that, show you how we're doing things like WAN assurance for end-to-end service levels, and bring in our Marvis Virtual Network Assistant, which is really the crown jewels in the MIST Juniper solution. So let me go and share the screen right now, and I'll transition to that. Okay. So hopefully you guys can see the screen. Sunalini, can you nod if you're seeing that? Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so as we said, when it comes to SD-WAN setup and monitoring, the first thing you want to do is obviously have visibility into your whole network domain. So here again, we have all of our SD-WAN endpoints that are here, and you can actually drill down into any specific location to see exactly, again, what link is currently in use, what are the stats on that link, what are the top applications being utilized. So again, like any good SD-WAN solution would have, this gives you the macro visibility in a very clear and concise way as to what's happening in your network. If you take that one step further, there is the ability to actually then drill down. So what I'm going to actually show you is, for example, the ability to set up service levels. So in our environment, you do have the ability to set up specific service levels for specific links and networks that monitor your application performance and your network performance. Again, this is to guarantee your service level performance and your WAN performance. What we're going to show on the Juniper side is when you layer on the AI-driven on top of that, we're able to take this model from a network-centric service level model to one that's more experience-based, one that's more user experience-based. So again, you're starting to see the power of the Juniper solution here. It's not just end-to-end service levels from client to cloud, from LAN to WLAN to WAN, but it's also service levels that focus on not just the network and the application experience, but the user experience as well. And we'll show that in a second. Another key thing is with this solution is you do have the ability to drill down into the application behaviors. So here I'm actually showing which applications are using the WAN links and how much bandwidth specific they're taking up, how many sessions, et cetera. So again, you can get a better feel of what the application characteristics on your WAN. Again, if you talk about the art of the possible here, the beauty of an end-to-end AI-driven solution like Juniper is able to provide is you can actually correlate this application behavior on the WAN to the LAN. So let me give you an example. In a traditional SD-WAN environment, if a WAN is using up too much bandwidth, and if an application is using too much bandwidth, and the WAN link is suffering, it'll switch to a different WAN link, potentially a much more expensive or higher bandwidth WAN link. But what if, for example, as you can see here, this traffic isn't really enterprise traffic? It's CNN, it's Yahoo, it's maybe YouTube. It's traffic that actually should not be going across your corporate WAN. So in an end-to-end model, we would have the ability to actually, notify the wireless LAN, for example, and say, look, why don't we throttle back these applications on the LAN side so we don't have to go to a more expensive WAN link? Again, by having that LAN to WAN visibility and control, you can make better decisions based on real-time information, based on real-time policies that are proactive, not reactive and static, right? And so again, you can have much better visibility and control into what you're doing, okay? The last thing I'll show on the SD-WAN is you can't do SD-WAN without security. Security is a key component of this. And as we mentioned, this is a big differentiator for the Juniper MIST solution, right? All of our CP access points, or SRX platforms in particular, are full-blown security devices with full-blown next-generation firewalls, advanced threat protection, encrypted threat analysis, everything you get with the Juniper solution. It's built into our solution. And so here you can see, at a quick click, you can see all the threats that are being detected in your entire secure SD-WAN environment. The types of threats, and then you can drill down and see exactly where they are, what countries, what locations they're being detected, and what you can do about them. So again, the power of the AI-driven enterprise is not just the ability to see these threats, but to take action. So for example, with SecIntel for MIST, if you detect that there's a specific threat that's happening on your specific network, you can contact your wireless domain and tell it to quarantine that device or kick it off the network. Or you can tell it to limit the types of resources that it has access to. So again, this is the beauty of the end-to-end AI-driven enterprise. So what I've shown here is the quote-unquote basic SD-WAN services. I'm not going to do a full demo to talk about how you can drill down, set up CPE, do all of this stuff. I just wanted to focus on some of the key characteristics here that really make the solution unique and robust. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Sunalini, who's going to add on top of this, talk about where AI-driven WAN comes into play with WAN assurance and our Marvis virtual network assistant. So Sunalini, let me hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And Jeff, thank you for that demo, right? I want to make sure that the folks on the line understand that when we say we have secure router, when we say we have SD-WAN, we have SD-WAN in spades, right? We can go against any solution out there in the market and beat them hollow with all the capabilities you saw Jeff demonstrating around application visibility, around the link optimization, around throttling capabilities and traffic shaping. But where we are now taking that to the next level is by tying that, not only that network SLA, that app SLA, that link SLA, to also the end user experience. So just like MIST did with wireless, and then when MIST got acquired by Juniper, we did with wired assurance, we have taken that same framework, our intense focus on user experience as the key guiding factor on how we can make the day-to operations easier for the network IT teams, our partners when they're managing networks, by taking it down to the end user. So it's not about the CPE health, it's not about the network SLA, it's not about the link SLA alone. In addition to all of that, how do we tie that back into the end user experience? I'll tell you about a story, right? When we were playing purely in the wireless domain, this was, again, pre-Juniper acquisition, we were deployed in one of the largest retail stores in North America. They're a global retailer. And we began with a POC in 6 stores just before July 4th weekend. We were like, yep, we're up for the challenge, let's go. So we deployed our MIST APs, we enabled our AI engine that we affectionately call Marvis, and we let the store run just before July 4th weekend. July 3rd evening, our Marvis engine started alerting us, hey, something's wrong with the network, I'm seeing authentication failures on these particular devices. We called them and said, hey, we're seeing these issues, are the stores complaining? And they were like, nope, everything's okay, nobody's complaining, we're good. We're like, that's great, but just know that we are seeing something anomalous on the network that's causing end user impact to not have the clients authenticate, and that to a very certain segment of clients. July 4th morning, 10 a.m., guess what? We got a call. Hey, what did you guys do? The MIST Wi-Fi is not working, what's happening? We said, hang on. We just went straight to Marvis and we said, Marvis, what's happening to the network? Marvis very clearly said, hey, it's something on these particular devices where they're not able to authenticate, and it's something to do with the WAN link. So even without having any elements or data telemetry coming from the WAN side, in a third-party framework, Marvis was able to identify there is an authentication issue and it's tied to something on the WAN. So we let the customer know that please check if something changed on WAN gateways. Sure enough, they said they did a firmware upgrade and there was an MTU mismatch, which was causing the certificates on these devices to not be able to go through. Now that was 2 years ago, where we were only playing in the wireless domain, and I were able to call out, hey, there's something on the WAN causing an issue on the end user not being able to authenticate onto the network. With what we have developed with this AI-driven WAN, that's one of the exact problems we can solve now, where not only say, hey, it is whether it's Wi-Fi related, LAN related, or WAN related, but more importantly, identify to the network admins, to our managed services partners, exactly what is going on the WAN, whether it's an MTU mismatch, whether it's a bad cable, or whether it's of latency on the link, or even latency in response time from the application server, to very quickly get down to the root cause proactively and then help fix it. That's the beauty of SDWAN. It's, again, user to cloud, experience to the application, and anywhere in the middle of that, if there's an issue, to be able to pinpoint it, because that's what's causing an end-user experience. Now, let me demonstrate how we do that. What did we do here to make that a bridge between a network SLA, a link SLA, an application SLA to an end-user SLE? So if you're familiar with what MIST did for wireless and for the wired, that's the framework here that you see, where we created what we call these 3 key SLEs around gateway health, WAN link health, application experience. But the key differentiation is that when we're looking at gateway health or WAN link health or application experience, it's not just a time series graph on, hey, what was the gateway health at 10 a.m. on July 25th? It's about taking it back to the end user. When we say an application is successful or not, or a WAN link health is successful or not, it's based on measuring that impact on end users. Did one end user or multiple end users get impacted? And if so, why? So if you take a double click on the WAN link health, for example, we've already optimized the link leveraging our SD-WAN solution via CSO. It's already running to the best capacity. But that being said, we're still seeing issues. We're seeing that on the WAN link health, we are seeing minutes of time where the users on the network are not getting a good performance. We can tell you exactly who those users are on that interface of that particular SRX gateway. We can tell you what that link is, and then we can go dive into that SRX itself directly from our AI-driven WAN service framework to say, hey, was there anything on the gateway, any events that transpired that correlate to a bad experience? Why is the WAN link held despite all the optimization being done dynamically? Still not. So we look at all the applications, we look at who's running what application and tying it back to the end user. We can see we have MS Teams running, we have LinkedIn running, we have mobile device running, we have a lot of collaboration apps running. We're looking at the CPU, memory, traffic going through the SRX gateway by itself. But again, our key story is something is happening on the WAN side, which is causing latency problems on that particular interface. So that's where Marvis comes in. We go into Marvis and we say, hey, Marvis, Abhi's team call is bad. Now what Marvis is doing here, essentially all this data that I went through, it's looking at all the SLEs in user minutes, not just a simple time series, but measuring success failure in terms of actual end user impact. It's looking at the application data. It's looking at the user of the application at what point in time, correlating that with any CPE events that may have transpired or any link events, giving you a very concise answer. When you say Abhi's team call is bad, it says exactly which session you're talking about. It correlates end-to-end, whether it's a Wi-Fi issue, a wired issue, or a gateway issue, where it very clearly says we're seeing abnormally high latency on gateway. So the exact data point you saw on the SLE when we were already flagging gateway issues, you're now able to see that it was actually a problem of latency on the gateway side. So yes, there is some interference, but it's not really impacting the call. The predominant reason for Abhi's team call having an issue is because of the uplink on this interface, and mostly because of a slow response from the application server. Numerous times on the end-to-end stack, you're always wondering, I mean, a lot of our networking vendors out there, they have wireless, they have wired, they have WAN gateway, they talk about SD-WAN, but they're not able to tie that into end user experience. When an application experience is bad for an end user, why is it so? Is it a device issue? Is it a Wi-Fi issue, a switch issue, a gateway issue, or a configuration problem, or an application server issue? And that's where our AI engine comes into play. We are now able to correlate end-to-end throughout the network stack and tell you exactly why an end user experience on a particular application is optimal. It's not just about Juniper having the full stack. It's more about the AI engine, the visibility, the insights, the correlation, the data science, machine learning happening in the back end to give you a very simple, concise answer to a very complex question. Why is my app experience bad? And correlating that for you in a very simple way through a conversational interface. So that was how we are taking the next evolution from SD-WAN to AI-WAN and tying it back to the end user experience. So what are the Juniper's unique WAN differences here, right? And that's where we talk about the SLEs that I just demonstrated for you. It's all about taking it from a network SLA, a link SLA, an application SLA, and tying it down to an SLE. what is the end user experience, and how do we, if we find issues, how do we, first of all, identify proactively what's causing it, and then remediate for it. If it's a config issue, we will auto remediate. If it's a bad cable, we will then alert the network admin. If it's a bad link, we will say, hey, go investigate the ISP because they're not living up to their SLA. And of course, hand in hand with that is the AI-driven support. Nobody else in the industry is giving you the self-driving network, this AI-driven support. Yes, there are vendors out there with a full stack solution, or they are pure play SDWAN. But in either of those cases, you don't have the AI engine, you don't have a Marvis that is correlating what the network is doing to the end user and the application. So now for the first time, you have a single pane for Wi-Fi, for LAN, for WAN, for assurance. So any of your day two operations where a lot of network IT spends their time in sustaining, all of that overhead, that headache are going to be minimized because Juniper is now able to offer an AI WAN platform. Marvis now becomes your day two operation single pane of glass. It's able to actually identify, automatically detect, and in some cases automatically remediate for issues found on the network on a full stack Juniper solution. And even when it comes down to third party, like I mentioned earlier with the POC we ran 2 years ago, and now they're a very happy customer, we're able to even pull data from third party, but obviously not to the fidelity and granularity of what we do with the full Juniper stack. And last but not least, Juniper prides itself in security. Connected security shows up in every element of our network stack, again, be it on the wireless side with our second tel integration we announced earlier this year, or be it on how we enable the single click activation or enabling the experiences right away the minute you deploy the solution. Jeff, back over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sunalini. So again, hopefully from hearing the background on the AI-driven enterprise and the demo, it becomes very clear, where we're changing the industry. Again, all around bringing that automation, insight, and actions with a focus on the user experience. And we've been really fortunate that it's really taking hold, the AI-driven enterprise. We've seen just enormous momentum in almost every vertical, healthcare, hospitality, retail. Folks are moving to the Juniper MIST solution, whether it's the top healthcare system in the U.S., the VA administration, to top retail customers like Sunalini mentioned. The Gap is one, to top educations like Dartmouth University, to just regional companies like Allied Pinnacle that are relying on Juniper for their WAN needs. The world is shifting towards AI-driven enterprise, and Juniper is leading that charge. And so really, again, in conclusion is the old IT service model is dead. The reactive, the manual way of dealing with things just will not cut it anymore in this new model, right? The network-centric way just won't cut it. User experience is the new uptime. And the AI-driven enterprise brings that transition, right? It's all about moving to the cloud, leveraging AI-driven operations, AI-driven support, a visibility and a focus on the user experience, and that connected security thread to tie it all together. So with that, we have about, I think, 6 minutes left. We're happy to open up to questions. Otherwise, again, feel free to log into mist.com/demos or to go to the Juniper website. We'll be doing these demos on an ongoing basis, or we're happy to schedule a personal one for you as well. With that, again, I want to thank everybody, and Sunalini, thanks for joining me, and we'll talk soon. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you, Jeff.